I'm really happy to be here with you because I think you're the ones who are driving this exciting culinary scene in Central Florida. I've been able to watch it grow over the last 30 years, and it's really exciting. So I just want to run through a few things about how I review restaurants, the things I look for when I go into a restaurant. Then I've got a little presentation on my Diner's Bill of Rights, and then I'll answer your questions. I always like to get the questions, and I promise to answer the question that I'm asked most often, which is, how come you're not fat? Okay, I promise. But first of all, there are three things that I look for when I go into a restaurant. Obviously, number one is food, because I mean, if you don't have food, you really shouldn't have a restaurant. It goes together. You might be able to fool some of the people without having a restaurant, but you really got to have good food. The next thing is service. And I'm a real stickler on good service because how many of you have served as waiters as well in a restaurant? So not too many. I think everyone should have to do public duty as a waiter so that they understand what a hard job it is. It really is difficult. I was a waiter, it's probably about 35 years ago in Arizona. It's the toughest job I've ever had. And it's the only job I've ever had where I woke up with nightmares. At 3 a.m., I would wake up and think, oh my God, I've left those people sitting on B5. I've got to go greet them. And I'm serious. It was a wake up in sweat. So I'm a stickler on service because I know what a difficult job it is, and I also know how easy it is to turn around a bad situation. Now, the third thing that I consider when I'm reviewing a restaurant is what I just basically call ambiance. And that's the feel of being in the restaurant. It can be anything from the temperature to the music that's playing, to the cleanliness of not only the restaurant where you're sitting, the bathroom, anything that you can see outside the restaurant when you're walking in. So, it's all about the appropriateness of that ambiance to that restaurant. If you're serving hot dogs, there's no reason for you to have white tablecloths and white napkins. And on the other hand, if you're serving haute cuisine and Chateaubriand, you don't want to have plastic knives and forks. It all kind of plays in together. So those are the three things that I look at. And I also, I don't want to get too technical on it, but I kind of see it as a general systems theory approach, which is general systems theories takes, and I only do this because it was my master's thesis, and I have to justify paying for my college. So general systems theory it looks at a suprasystem, which is the restaurant, and then that's made up of subsystems. And I see the subsystems as those three areas. And each one of those areas has to operate as its own entity. So if you've got the kitchen preparing the food, everything has to work properly. The service, everything has to work properly. Nobody in the weeds. And say maybe there's something going on in the kitchen, somebody didn't show up, you're having to do double duty, and so the system starts to break down just a bit. But let's consider that everything is going right with the food humming along, everything's great, service, everyone's there, everyone's on time, everything's moving smoothly, and the ambiance is perfect. Imagine three circles that are all those, they come together and they interlap. And where they interlap is the perfect customer experience. And it's hard to come by. But sometimes when it all works, that's just the best. So those are the things that I consider. The other thing that I'm often asked is, how come I don't open up a restaurant of my own if I'm going around and critiquing everyone else? And my first response to that is, who would pay for the lobotomy first? Because I think you'd have to have half a brain to open up a restaurant. I don't want to take it, but it's a very, very special thing. I don't have the skills to open up a restaurant, but I'm a diner, I'm a consumer, and I approach it from that aspect. So, but if I were to open up a restaurant, I years ago put together what I call my diner's Bill of Rights. And if I were to open up a restaurant, these are the rules that I would ascribe to, that I would expect from my staff, and a little bit of what I would expect from my customers too. So let me just run through those real quickly. First of all, you have the right to a pleasant and relaxing dinner. That's pretty much why most people go out to eat. You also have the right to a speedy dinner. A lot of people come in, they're on their way to the theater, or they're going to catch a movie, something like that, but it's really important that they communicate that to the restaurant. You have the right to relax following your meal. The check will not be delivered to your table until it's requested. Very important thing. I get really ticked off when I'm sitting there having a nice relaxing meal, maybe having coffee after dinner with my dessert, and the waiter comes over and says, I'll take that anytime you're ready. Well, I'm not ready, so put it away. And we're going to say goodbye to Facebook right now, and we'll see you at, you can go to my page, Scott Joseph's Orlando Restaurant Guide, or scottjosepholando.com, and we'll show you the rest. So everybody say goodbye. Okay, when you call my restaurant to make a reservation, you will be greeted promptly. This is the first impression. You don't get another chance. A lot of the reservations now are open table, and you don't get that, but a lot of us, people my age, they still like to call up and talk to somebody live, and it's very important that phone be answered properly. When you drive up to my restaurant, you may notice that I've employed a valet parking service. You will also notice that they're using spaces closest to the front door. I won't allow that. If you have valet service, the valet are going to park in the back. I want the spaces up front for the people who just drive up. The person who greets you at the front door will not be a lowly paid high school kid chewing gum, reading a book, or talking on the phone with friends. I'm amazed at how many times the host or hostess is hired only because they look good. Especially women seem to be hired if they look good in a tight black dress. And you are the first person that people are going to greet. And so I want somebody who knows how to say hello, knows how to walk up. I want a host who is not standing behind the host stand. I want somebody to anticipate someone coming into the door, go up and open it and say, welcome. It's like you're inviting them into your home. Very, very important. And you have the right to be seated promptly. How many times have you made a reservation at a restaurant, gone in, and they say, we're not ready for you? Well, it happens. There's a restaurant in New York called the Hourglass Cafe, and when you sit down, they turn the hourglass over, and when the sand runs out, you have to get up and leave. You don't find too many places like that. Most people have the table for as long as they want it. So, it's not an exact science, reservations. So sometimes you're made to wait. If you have to wait at the bar, I think that you're not necessarily going to buy you a drink. You have to buy your own drink at the bar, but I want to move that bar tab to my dining room. And now with your POS systems, it's easy to do. Okay, no one will refer to you as you guys, even if, in fact, you are a table of guys. It's very important that you change the way you talk when you're talking to the public. I've been with women who in their 70s, and as part of my dining party, and the waiter invariably comes up and says, "How are you guys tonight?" Well, that's insulting. Just, how are you tonight? You don't even have to say, how are you people, how are you folks? Just, how are you tonight? Welcome. Very important. The server will not read the menu to you. How many times have you been in a restaurant and you're looking at the menu and the waiter comes up and starts telling you everything that you're reading? I'm really capable of doing that myself. It's fine. If I have questions, I'll ask you. My servers are required to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the menu, so that if someone does ask a question, you can go through everything. I was in New York last week and went to this really posh lounge it's the Baccarat Lounge at the Baccarat Hotel, and everything is served in this Baccarat crystal, very, very expensive. And you pay a lot. I think the cocktails were all in the upper $20 range, really expensive. And we sat down, and the young woman who seated us before we left, I said, "What is your signature cocktail?" She had no idea. She asked somebody else nearby. He had no idea. I mean, it's really an important thing to know what you're doing there. And if the kitchen is offering specials for the night, I expect those to be printed, especially if there's more than one. If it's just one, that's okay. But a waiter comes up and says, "We're running 5 specials tonight, and let me tell you what they are," and goes through them, and I don't remember what the first one was when he gets to the 5th one. So, printers are so cheap now. Just put a printer in your office and print out the specials for the evening. My servers would be instructed not to congratulate you on your order. I'll go through and I'll say, "I'll have the coq au vin." He says, "Oh, good choice." Like, good boy. That's just once. I'd like one to say, I'll have the steak tartare, and they'll say, "Oh, that's really crap." Never happens. No auctioning off of food. When the food comes to the table, no one will say, "Who ordered the steak tartare?" This is a really easy thing. Everyone know pivot point? Because only one person's been a waiter. Only one person you don't know it? You know pivot point. Okay. This is a really easy trick, and if you remember nothing else from today, I hope you'll remember this. You choose a point of the dining room. So we would choose right here, just out of example. And your tables are all numbered, right? So you know that the people at this table, right, let's say this is B2, I take the orders here, and each position has a number. Okay, so B2 got position 1, position 2, position 3, position 4. And that's based on over here. If you're over here, then you have to readjust yourself to thinking over there. It's still 1, 2, 3, 4. And so as you take the orders, and you take the orders of the women first, because we're still, it's not a sexist thing, it's just a polite thing. And so I ask you your order, and I write that down in the position of number 1. I ask you, and it's position number 3. And then you get to order last. What would you like? Never mind, we're not going to really serve you. I put that down in number 2. And so that's how it gets entered into the system. And so whoever, if it's you probably will remember. But whoever runs the food out, all they have to do is look, position 3. that goes right here. Position 1, it goes right here. Position 2. And you never ask, but you announce it as you're putting it down. And it's the coolest trick in the world, and so few places utilize it. So remember that pivot point ordering. Hot food gets priority. No excuse. If there's a delay in your order, someone will explain the reason for the delay. One of my favorite stories of the years of reviewing restaurants was everything was going wrong with my food. There's a Murphy's Law for restaurants. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it will go wrong when the restaurant critic is at your restaurant. It happens a lot. But this one particular fellow, and it's fine, you know, I know things go wrong, it's just how you fix them. So this one particular fellow brought me the wrong food. And I said, I didn't order that. So he took it back. And a few minutes later, he comes back with the same dish. I said, no, really, I didn't order that. And he said, the chef's in a really bad mood tonight. Would you mind just taking it? He got fired. Cross service, very important. If I'm at a table and I can't see my waiter, if I ask someone else, I don't expect that person to say, let me get your waiter for you. I expect that person to say, let me get that for you. Let me make that better. Let me take that away. 2-minute check back after the food is served. If something's not right with your food, and this is, I'm addressing the customer. If something's not right with your food, you have to tell the server. And then what happens next is the most important thing. Things go wrong with food. You know, it could be too hot, it could be too cold, it could be the wrong thing. Steaks can be undercooked, overcooked. You have to tell the server right away. And the servers should always be empowered to make it right. You don't have to run and get a manager. In my restaurant, you wouldn't have to run and get a manager. If I call you over and I say, I'm sorry, my steak is not cooked enough. Well, God, that's how you ordered it. I'm pretty sure that's how you ordered it. That's how we do. Pick it up, take it away, make it right. You know, I want to see a manager. Well, yes, I'll get you a manager, but is there something I can do in the meantime that can help you out? So servers are empowered to make things right. And I have no sympathy for people who don't say something is wrong with their food and then go home and complain and call in the next day and say, my steak was undercooked. Sometimes they'll call me, they'll send me a message saying, I think you should go review that restaurant because their food is all wrong. My first question is to them is, what did they say when you told them that at the restaurant? I said, well, I didn't tell them. I didn't want to cause a problem. Sorry, I can't help you. Okay. And there will always be someone in the dining room who is in charge. And you can do a Google search of my name and the phrase, there was no one in the dining room I could identify as a manager, and see all the reviews come up that had negative service notices in them. Because if I know the service is not up to snuff, the first thing I'm looking for is a manager to see if that manager is aware that things are going wrong. And there's a really legendary restaurateur from the area, Bob Snow, who started Church Street Station. Years ago, it was the downtown entertainment place, and it had several restaurants. And he told me once that if he had a restaurant that was underperforming, the first thing he would do is go into the office and take out the manager's chair. So there'd be no place for the manager to sit down. Smart man. I also expect my managers to dress better than they expect the customer to dress. Again, in New York last week, I went to a very famous restaurant, and the manager was dressed in jeans. This was an upscale restaurant. He was dressed in jeans. He had on a sport coat and kind of a tie, but he really didn't look like he belonged in this restaurant. And if it were mine, I probably would have fired him if he wasn't also the owner of that restaurant. So I guess he can do whatever he wants. Service should not hover around a table, but they should always be aware of what's going on at their tables. And so just even, you got to learn how to read what the customer is thinking. You have to be mind readers, really. So you kind of look for somebody looking around, and just go up and say, is there something I can help you with? I tell you, serving is a tough job. You have to be really, really smart. It's considered improper to remove a plate until everyone at the table is finished. So don't go up and start, you see somebody is finished, don't remove that because it's going to make the other people feel uncomfortable. Also, please don't say, are you still working on that? Because if working on the food, if it's considered work, then you've done something wrong with the food. Okay? And while we're on that subject, if someone says thank you to you, never say no problem. Please, just stop it. Get that out of your lexicon at all costs. Just, you're welcome. Someone says thank you, say you're welcome or my pleasure, but never no problem. We've already talked about don't bring the check until someone asks for the check. And then when the people get up and leave, I expect every one of my staff to thank them for coming because they're paying your salary, whether they were at your table and tipping you or not. You want them to come back. You want them to feel welcome. So I always say, thank you for coming. And I say to you, thank you for coming.